It happens on Christmas Eve of all nights, the night when families are supposed to sit close, share warmth, and remember that blood runs deeper than pride. My son stands across the table, his voice cutting through the laughter like a knife. "You're not family anymore." The words slam into me harder than the winter wind outside. The room falls silent, forks freeze midair. My hands are wrapped around an ordinary glass of red wine, ordinary until now. Because in that glass I see my trembling reflection, my son's furious face mirrored in the dark surface. It becomes the most unusual object of the night, heavier than any gift under the tree. I look at him, this boy I raised alone for 20 years after his mother died. His jaw is tight, his fists clenched. I remember the trace of his childhood, the way he used to call me Pa, in a voice so soft it could melt steel. But tonight, he won't even look at me as his father. The relational gap yawns wide in that moment. 3 years of growing distance since he married, since his wife began whispering that I was a burden. Now, here it is spoken aloud, cruel and sharp. I clutch my chest as a faint ache blooms. My doctor had warned me about my heart, that too much stress could trigger another episode. Early stakes surge through me like a warning bell. This is not just about pride, but survival. The silence stretches. My grandson stares confused. My daughter-in-law smirks into her napkin. My son breathes hard, like he's waiting for me to fight back. But I don't. Instead, I set the glass down carefully, the sound of it on the table echoing like a gunshot. And in that moment, I make a promise to myself: I will not crumble. I will not vanish into the night as if his words erased me. If he thinks I am no longer family, he has no idea what blood ties can still reveal. And that was only the beginning. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The night air is sharper than I expect when I step outside. Christmas lights twinkle along the street, but they feel like a mockery, tiny bursts of cheer against the heaviness pressing on my chest. I walk slowly, each step measured the echo of my son's words. "You're not family anymore," pounding harder than the crunch of gravel beneath my shoes. I don't take the bus. I don't call a cab. I walk, alone. The distance between his house and mine isn't far, but tonight it feels endless, like I'm trudging across years of silence and disappointment. In my pocket, I still have the folded napkin from dinner. I don't know why I brought it. Maybe because it carries the faint trace of my grandson's scribble. He had been doodling with a pen earlier, little circles and stick figures. That childish ink feels like a fragile thread of belonging, the only one left tethering me to that table. As I pass a bakery, I smell gingerbread cooling on the racks inside. It reminds me of the Christmas mornings I used to wake early to bake with my wife. She'd hum carols under her breath while I clumsily shaped the dough. She's been gone 20 years now, but the scent pulls me back to her, to a time when family meant something unbreakable. A thought creeps in: maybe my son is right. Maybe I've outlived my place in this family. Old men become shadows. Sometimes it's easier for the young to push us into silence. But then another thought interrupts: no shadows only appear when there is still light. Halfway home, I pause under a street lamp. My heart tightens again, a warning squeeze that makes me press my palm against my chest. The doctor's words echo: avoid stress, avoid anger, or your heart will betray you before your family does. I let the pain subside, forcing myself to breathe evenly. Silence surrounds me here, the kind of silence that isn't empty but heavy, like the world itself is holding its breath. In that silence, I realize something: my son may have cast me out tonight, but blood carries secrets deeper than words, secrets he has no idea exist. I continue walking slower now, but with a flicker of resolve warming my steps. The night may be cold, but it's not yet finished with me. But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. The house greets me with silence. No laughter, no warmth, only the faint ticking of the old clock in the hallway. I slip off my coat and let it fall across the chair, too heavy with more than just winter air. For a moment, I just stand there, staring at the shadows stretching across my living room floor. Then my eyes fall on the bookshelf. On the bottom shelf, tucked away behind stacks of forgotten magazines, sits a large, worn photo album. The leather cover is cracked, the spine frayed from years of handling. I hesitate before reaching for it, as though I'm about to open more than just a book. When I pull it into my lap, the dust rises like a whisper. The first page holds a picture of my son at 3 years old, sitting on my shoulders at the park. His little hands clutched my hair so tightly I remember thinking he'd never let go. My wife took that photo. Her neat handwriting is on the back. My 2 boys, my whole world. I run my fingers over the ink. That handwriting feels like a personal trace reaching across decades, reminding me of the woman who anchored us. She believed love was enough to bind a family. I wonder what she would say if she'd been alive tonight, hearing her only child shout those words at me. Flipping through the album, I see birthdays, school plays, even a picture from the summer carnival where he won a goldfish. For a year, that goldfish sat on the kitchen counter and my son fed it every night without fail. He was loyal then, so loyal it makes me ache. And yet as the pages turn, the photos change. Smiles fade, distances grow. I see the years after her death when it was just the two of us. I raised him with everything I had, but I can almost trace the line where resentment began to take root. There's a peculiar fact I recall folk around here say, an album holds more than memories. It holds the weight of what was unspoken. Maybe that's why each page feels heavier than the last, as though it's demanding an answer I don't yet have. I pause on one picture, his wedding day. He's smiling wide, but my eyes go to his bride standing beside him. Her hand is resting on his arm, possessive, her smile a little too sharp. That was the day the gap began, the day I felt myself pushed to the edges of his new life. The silence in the room deepens so heavy I can hear my own breath. I close the album gently, my fingers lingering on the cover. It's a book of proof that I was there, that I mattered, that his life was built on my shoulders, whether he admits it or not. I lean back, staring at the ceiling. A moral question twists in my chest. What does it mean when the child you gave everything to no longer calls you family? Is blood just biology, or is it supposed to mean loyalty? The clock ticks louder. Somewhere inside me, a resolve starts to form. There are truths my son doesn't know, pieces of our family's past that could still shake his certainty, and whether he wants it or not, I may be forced to show him. Silence has its own way of speaking. The album lies closed on the table, but its weight lingers in the room like smoke. I rise slowly, my knees stiff, and head toward the bedroom. Each step feels deliberate, as though my body knows where it wants me to go before my mind admits it. In the corner of my room, there's a dresser older than my son. I bought it secondhand when he was still a toddler, when money was so tight I measured every coin before spending it. The wood is scarred and faded now, but the bottom drawer has always stayed locked. For years I've told myself there was no reason to open it, yet tonight, after his words, I feel the key's shape burning in my memory. I kneel and pull a small tin box from beneath the bed. Inside, nestled under old receipts and forgotten trinkets, lies the brass key. I haven't touched it in over a decade. My hand trembles as I fit it into the lock, a sound clicking open like a confession. The drawer slides back to reveal a stack of envelopes, yellowed with age, bound together by twine. Beneath them sits a leather folder, its corners bent and edges frayed. I lift the first envelope, instantly recognizing the handwriting, my wife's, flowing and precise. Each letter is addressed to our son, but never sent. A personal trace of her voice preserved in ink, now staring back at me like a ghost. I don't open them yet. Instead, I turn to the folder. Inside are documents, property deeds, contracts, bank slips, things I had tucked away after her death. For years, I told myself it was too painful, that one day when my son was ready, I'd reveal it all. But now I realize withholding these secrets has cost me dearly. I sit back against the bed frame, the papers spread around me. One deed in particular catches my eye, an address scrawled in a neighborhood I don't recall. My wife's name is on it, not mine, not my son's, just hers, and the date years before she passed. The implications swirl. Why had she hidden this from both of us? Was she protecting something or someone? My chest tightens, but this time it's not from pain. It's from the weight of questions multiplying faster than answers. The silence of the room presses in. It feels alive watching me. I think of a superstition I once heard: locked drawers keep not just objects, but memories that refuse to die. Tonight, I've set them free. I close my eyes for a moment, letting the stillness steady me. Morally, I wrestle with the choice: should I keep these secrets buried to preserve whatever fragments remain with my son? Or should I uncover the truth no matter how it cuts? When I open my eyes again, I know the decision is already made. The key has turned, the drawer is open, and nothing will close it again. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The papers still cover my bed when the urge strikes me. I need to hear his voice. Even if it's anger, even if it's rejection, I can't let Christmas Eve end without trying one more time. I pick up my phone from the nightstand. The screen glows too brightly in the dark room, illuminating the envelopes and deeds scattered like pieces of a puzzle. My thumb hesitates over his name. For years, I never thought twice before calling him. Now it feels like I'm about to dial a stranger. The ringback tone hums in my ear, each note dragging longer than the last. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, the call connects, but there's no greeting, just silence, then the faint sound of voices in the background. I know he's there. I can almost picture him staring at the phone, jaw tight, deciding whether I deserve his words. Son, I start softly, my voice cracked with exhaustion. I just wanted to talk. The silence stretches, then a cold reply. You should stop calling. I meant what I said. You're not family anymore. I close my eyes, steadying myself. My instinct is to plead, to remind him of birthdays, scraped knees, nights I stayed up with him when he had fevers. Instead, I swallow those words. There are things you don't know, I murmur. Things your mother wanted you to understand. A sharp laugh cuts through the line, bitter and short. Don't drag her into this. She's gone. And so should you. Then the call ends. Just like that abrupt final, a blade across a wound. I stare at the dark screen. The reflection of my face looks older, wearier than I remember. I wonder if this is what estrangement feels like. Not just distance, but the deliberate shutting of a door. The room is silent again, but it's not empty. The letters on the bed. The deed with my wife's name. They're all reminders that she left behind something meant to speak louder than tonight's rejection. I can almost hear her voice urging patience, urging me to hold on. There's a curious fact I recall from a grief counselor long ago. Unresolved words between parent and child can echo for generations, shaping destinies like unseen currents. Tonight I feel those currents pulling at me, reminding me that silence is not the end, it's a beginning of another kind. I set the phone down slowly. A moral question lingers in my chest. Am I chasing his love at the cost of truth, or is the truth the only way to bring him back to me? I pull the envelopes closer, fingers brushing against my wife's handwriting. If my voice can't reach him, maybe hers still can. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The next morning, I step outside to fetch the newspaper. The street is hushed, still wrapped in holiday quiet. Frost edges the mailbox, and my breath turns to fog in the cold. I bend to pick up the paper, but before I can straighten fully, I hear a voice behind me. Rough night. It's Mr. Hahn, my neighbor from across the street. He's lived there for nearly 30 years, a retired postman who knows more about this neighborhood than anyone else. His eyes study me carefully, as though he already knows the answer to his own question. I force a small smile. Just family matters. He shifts his weight, clears his throat. I don't like to meddle, but I've seen your son around lately, not just last night. The words catch my attention. What do you mean? Mr. Hahn hesitates, glancing up and down the street. I've noticed him meeting with a man in a black car, parked 2 houses down, not once, not twice, several times in the past month. They talk in hushed tones, and your son always looks nervous. A chill prickles the back of my neck. I think back to the anger in my son's eyes, the way his fists clenched, as if he carried more than family resentment, debt trouble, or something darker. He's your blood, Mr. Hahn continues, lowering his voice. But be careful. Sometimes family can hurt you worse than strangers. His words sink deep. It's almost superstitious the way elders say betrayal within the family draws sharper pain than any wound from outside. I can feel the truth in it. I thank him quietly, my hands tightening around the rolled-up newspaper. Mr. Hahn gives a sympathetic nod before heading back to his porch, leaving me rooted in place. The silence on the street feels different now, not peaceful, but heavy with questions. Why would my son be sneaking around with strangers? Why hide from me unless he feared what I might uncover? Inside, I place the paper on the table, but don't open it. Instead, I stare at the envelopes still stacked neatly beside the album. The answers may be waiting in my wife's words, but part of me dreads what truths they'll expose. Morally, I feel torn. Do I protect him by staying silent, or do I protect myself by uncovering the truth? A parent's duty is supposed to be simple, but when betrayal lingers, duty twists into something far more complicated. I press my palm against the folder, steadying my breath. My son may believe I'm no longer family, but I sense a storm coming that will prove otherwise. Silence has its own way of speaking. The house feels colder that afternoon, as though the walls themselves have absorbed last night's words. I sit at the table, staring at the stack of envelopes bound with twine. My wife's handwriting dances across them, elegant and steady, like she wrote them only yesterday. With hesitant fingers, I slide the first letter free. It's addressed to our son, his full name carefully written across the front. But the seal is unbroken. Why hadn't I ever given this to him? Why had it been left here hidden in the drawer all these years? I break the seal. Inside, her voice spills across the page in ink. My dear boy, if you are reading this, It means I am no longer by your side. I want you to remember that love is stronger than pride, and your father's sacrifices are deeper than you may ever know. Her words pierce me. It's as if she foresaw the rift we now face. She writes about the nights I stayed awake working double shifts, the way I skipped meals so our son could eat, the hours I spent teaching him how to ride a bicycle even though my knees ached. Things she noticed, things she wanted him never to forget. I feel my throat tighten. This letter is a personal trace of her soul reaching out from the grave to defend me. And yet he has never seen it. Tucked in the envelope, I find something else, a folded note, smaller, written in her rushed hand. It isn't addressed to anyone. It reads, "The apartment key is for him. Not yet. Not until he's ready. The key." My heart stutters. Could it be the same one my wife's friend gave me recently? Suddenly pieces of the puzzle edge closer together, but the picture remains blurred. A faint unease fills me. Why had she hidden an entire apartment, and why keep it secret from me, her husband? There's a folk belief I once heard that the dead often leave one last unsolved mystery, forcing the living to finish their story. Perhaps this is hers. I sit back, the silence pressing in the unopened letters stacked like a wall between past and present. I could deliver them all to my son, let her words pierce the pride in his heart. But something stops me. If he reads them now in his anger, he might tear them apart without absorbing a single word. I run my hand over the neat stack and whisper to the empty room. Not yet, but soon. Still, the ache in my chest deepens. Morally, I wrestle with a haunting thought. Am I protecting him by waiting, or am I betraying her by withholding what she entrusted me to give? As I fold the letter back into its envelope, my phone buzzes on the table. Unknown number. I hesitate, then answer. A voice I don't recognize says, "Meet me tomorrow. It's about your son." The line goes dead. But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. The call from the unknown number lingers in my mind all night. I barely sleep, and when I do, I dream of my wife's handwriting, the ink dripping like blood across the page. By morning, I'm sluggish, my chest heavy. Still, I force myself to rise. I need answers, and whoever called might have them. But before I can leave the house, a sudden pain grips me. Sharp stabbing, as though a fist has wrapped around my heart and refuses to let go. My vision blurs. I stumble against the table, knocking the stack of letters to the floor. I manage to grab the phone and dial emergency. The sirens arrive quickly, but time slows into fragments. Faces leaning over me, the sting of cold air as they carry me out. The ceiling lights racing above as I'm wheeled into the emergency ward. The antiseptic smell of the hospital surrounds me, harsh and unforgiving. I'm no stranger to these walls. Years ago, I sat in this same place holding my wife's hand as she faded away. Now I lie here alone, my chest strapped with monitors, the rhythmic beep echoing in the sterile room. Through the curtain, voices drift in. I hear a nurse mention my son's name. My ears sharpen. Why would his name be spoken here now? I strain to listen. A low voice, a man, maybe a doctor, speaks quietly. Yes, he's been in recently, trying to access records, something about his father's file. My heart jolts, not from illness this time, but from realization. He's been here, digging, searching for something about me. The nurse replies, it didn't sound right. He seemed desperate. I close my eyes. So Mr. Hahn was right. My son has been hiding things, moving in shadows. But why the hospital? Why my records? Unless he's not just trying to erase me from his life, but from paper, from history itself. The thought chills me. Inheritance, property, medical files. These things can be manipulated if someone is desperate enough. And desperation has its own stench. I've smelled it in every word my son flung at me last night. A doctor enters, checking my vitals. He warns me about stress, about avoiding emotional triggers. I almost laugh. If only life gave such luxuries. When he leaves, the silence presses in, broken only by the machine's steady beep. I reflect on a curious detail I once read, that in Japanese folklore, hospitals are said to be crossroads between the living and the dead, where spirits linger to watch over, or sometimes to claim the sick. Tonight, I feel my wife's presence here, not ready to claim me, but pushing me forward. Morally, I wrestle with my next step. Do I confront my son now? Risk shattering what little remains between us? Or do I follow these threads quietly? Let the truth surface piece by piece until it cannot be denied. I close my eyes, listening to the silence. Somewhere in the distance, a child cries. In that fragile sound, I hear my grandson, and I know I cannot give up yet. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The next day, I'm released from the hospital with a warning to rest. But rest feels impossible when questions throb louder than the ache in my chest. I tuck the discharge papers into my coat pocket and step outside. The winter air is sharp biting, yet it clears my head. As I walk toward the bus stop, a voice calls my name. I turn to see Mr. Choi, a lawyer I haven't spoken to in years. He handled my wife's estate after she passed. His presence here outside the hospital feels too coincidental. "Long time," he says, adjusting his scarf. "I didn't expect to run into you here." "Neither did I reply cautiously. He studies me for a moment before lowering his voice. "I've been meaning to call you. Your son came to my office last week asking about your will." The words hit harder than the winter wind. My will. Mr. Choi nods. "He wanted to know if you'd left him everything." He seemed impatient, almost aggressive. I told him nothing could be disclosed without your presence, of course, but he didn't take it well. I feel the ground tilt slightly beneath me, my son already declaring me dead in his words, now circling like a vulture over what he believes will be left behind. "There's something else," Mr. Choi adds. He pulls a folded paper from his briefcase. "Your wife left instructions years ago. There are assets not yet disclosed, an apartment deed under her name. It seems your son suspects this, though he doesn't know the details." The apartment again, the same one mentioned in her note, the one I've never set foot in. I take the paper, staring at the address scribbled at the bottom. It feels like holding a key to a locked future. "I'd advise caution," the lawyer says firmly. "If your son is desperate enough, he may not wait for the natural order of things." The silence between us stretches. I nod slowly, tucking the paper inside my coat. As he leaves, I stand alone on the icy sidewalk. A memory surfaces. My wife once told me, "The things we hide in life aren't always meant to stay hidden forever. They're meant to be revealed when the time is right." Is this the time? A crow caws from the hospital roof above its wings, flapping against the gray sky. In some cultures, crows are messengers between worlds. To me, it feels like a warning. I turn toward the bus stop, the weight of the paper heavy against my chest. Morally, I feel a storm inside. Is my son's greed entirely his own? Or did my silence and secrecy plant the seed? As the bus pulls up, I clutch the railing, resolve hardening. If he wants to chase ghosts, then I will follow the trail myself before it destroys us both. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. 2 days later, the church hosts its annual New Year charity dinner. It's one of the few gatherings where nearly every family in the neighborhood shows up. I hesitate before attending, but something inside me insists hiding will only feed the whispers. If my son wants to erase me, I will not make it easy. The hall is warm, buzzing with chatter, the scent of braised beef and rice filling the air. Children dart between tables with paper lanterns while elders trade stories. I nod politely to acquaintances, though I feel the eyes on me. Word travels fast. My son's outburst at Christmas is already a subject of gossip. And then I see him. He's across the room, standing with his wife, his shoulders squared, his expression carefully composed. For a moment, our eyes lock. His jaw tightens. I decide not to avoid him. I approach slowly, weaving through the tables until I stand just a few feet away. "Good evening," I say, keeping my voice steady. He doesn't answer right away. Then, with deliberate slowness, he says loud enough for nearby ears to hear, "I told you. You're not family anymore. Why are you here?" Gasps ripple through the group around us. Conversations falter. Even the children pause, sensing the weight of his words. I feel the sting sharper under the gaze of neighbors and friends. Public humiliation, that was his intent. But instead of shrinking, I straighten my shoulders. "I came," I reply calmly, "because this is my community too." His wife steps forward, lips curled in a smirk. A community doesn't need old men clinging to scraps of dignity. The cruelty cuts, but I force myself to remain still. I remember something I once read. In traditional Confucian culture, a public shame was considered worse than private punishment. It stripped a man of honor in the eyes of all. Tonight, I taste that bitterness. A silence stretches through the hall. Some people turn away uncomfortable. Others lean closer, hungry for drama. I hear someone whisper, "That's his father." How could a son speak like that? For a brief second, my son falters under the weight of those murmurs. His eyes flicker with unease, but pride steals his face again. I lower my voice, speaking only for him. "Your mother would weep to hear you now." The words hit him like a strike. His nostrils flare, his fists clench. For a heartbeat, I think he might lash out physically. Instead, he hisses, "Don't use her against me." I let the silence linger, the kind that grows heavier with every second. Then I simply turn away, leaving him standing in the echo of his own cruelty. As I walk back to my seat, a moral question circles in my chest. Is restraint strength, or is it cowardice? Should I fight louder for my place, or does silence carry the sharper blade? I sit alone, my hands folded in my lap. Around me, the hall buzzes again, but I feel the eyes still on us. The fracture is no longer private, it's a wound everyone has witnessed. Silence has its own way of speaking. The humiliation at the charity dinner clings to me like smoke. I return home that night, but instead of collapsing into bed, I sit at the table with my wife's letters spread before me. One line in particular won't leave my mind. The apartment key is for him. Not yet. Not until he's ready. Ready for what? The address the lawyer gave me is scrawled on the folded slip still tucked in my coat. Curiosity gnaws at me. I've lived in this neighborhood my whole life, yet I can't place the street name. That alone feels like a warning. How could my wife own something I never even knew existed? By morning, I decide I can't sit idle any longer. My son is circling around secrets, trying to unearth what he thinks will belong to him. If I don't move first, the truth might twist beyond repair. I take the bus into the city, the folder tucked under my arm. As the streets pass by, I think of something my wife once said when he was little. A child's greed isn't born, it's taught, or it grows from what we leave unsaid. Her words sting now. The address leads me to a quiet street near the old riverbank. The buildings are gray-worn, the kind that look as if they've stood untouched for decades. I find the number on a rusted metal plaque half hidden by ivy. The door is locked, its paint peeling. I hesitate, then try the key given to me weeks ago by my wife's old friend. The lock resists at first, then clicks open with a groan. My hand trembles as I push the door inward. The air inside is stale, thick with dust and neglect. Sheets cover the furniture. A single window lets in a shaft of light that illuminates floating particles like ghosts caught mid-dance. On the mantel, I notice a small framed photograph turned face down. I pick it up carefully, wiping the glass with my sleeve. It's a picture of my wife younger, holding a baby. But it's not my son. My breath catches. The child's face is unfamiliar. I set the frame down slowly, my hands cold. Could it be a relative, a neighbor's child, or something else, something I was never told? A faint creak above makes me freeze. I glance up at the ceiling beams. The house groans, but no footsteps follow. Still, the silence presses like a warning. I make a mental note: this place is no ordinary storage. It's a vault of secrets. If my son finds it first, he may twist the truth to his own advantage. As I step back outside, the winter wind bites at my face. I wrestle with a heavy thought. Did my wife keep this apartment to protect him, or to protect me? The moral weight is crushing. Sometimes love hides the darkest truths, and if I uncover them, will they heal or destroy what little remains between father and son? I tuck the key back into my coat pocket, the decision made. I must return here soon, prepared to see everything. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I can't stop thinking about the photograph as I walk home. My wife, a baby I don't recognize, in a hidden apartment. Everything is tangled in a web I never knew existed. The snow crunches under my shoes, a crisp reminder that life outside continues, oblivious to the storms inside my chest. At home, I spread the letters and deeds across the dining table. The envelope containing the photograph slips slightly from the stack. I pick it up, my hands trembling with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Carefully, I write a note to my son. There are things you need to see. Truths you are not ready for. Meet me tomorrow. My thumb hovers over the pen. This is risky. He may react with anger, rage, or worse, but secrets buried for decades will not stay silent forever. The next morning he arrives. His posture is rigid, his face pale but defiant. I gesture toward the photograph in the envelope. Look at this, I say calmly. Your mother left something for both of us. He glances, scoffs, and pushes it away. I don't want it, he says. You've lied enough. I remain patient. I explain that the apartment exists, that it's tied to our family, that my wife intended him to inherit when he was ready. My son's eyes narrow, suspicion clouding his expression. He doesn't understand yet. Then I slide the photograph across the table. His gaze lingers, caught by the baby's face. Recognition, curiosity, and confusion flash across his features. I can see him beginning to piece things together. The hidden truth: my wife and I preserved the wealth and history he assumed were gone. A mainstream fact strikes me: most family disputes revolve around money or inheritance. Yet the real stakes are emotional, the bonds tested beyond material value. I glance at my son. The anger hasn't vanished, but a crack appears. Obscurely, I recall a local belief: revealing a hidden object at dawn or early day brings clarity to those who resist the truth. Perhaps that is why the morning light filters across the photograph, illuminating what was always meant to be seen. I lean back, letting the silence stretch. Morally, I reflect: sometimes patience carries more power than confrontation. My son may resist now, but the truth has a weight that time cannot ignore. For a moment he stares in silence, the room heavy with tension, the letters and photograph bridging decades of pride, anger, and misunderstanding. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The following evening I invite my son to the small cafe where we used to meet when he was a boy. The smell of roasted coffee beans and warm bread fills the air, comforting and oddly familiar, as if the walls themselves remember our conversations from years ago. He arrives, eyes guarded, hands shoved into the pockets of his coat. I gesture to the table by the window. He sits reluctantly, his posture stiff as a board. Outside, the snow falls silently, blanketing the streets with quiet that contrasts sharply with the storm simmering between us. I place the photograph and letters before him again. This isn't about money, I say softly. It's about understanding. About seeing what was hidden for your protection, not to deceive you. His lips press into a thin line. You've kept secrets my whole life, he says. His voice trembles, betraying the tension he's trying to mask. Why should I trust anything now? I inhale slowly, letting the pause stretch. Silence is heavy but deliberate. It forces him to face his own doubts. Morally, I know confrontation isn't about winning an argument. It's about opening the door for truth. Because your mother trusted us to protect these truths until the right time, I reply. And because I still believe in the son I raised, the one who used to sit on my shoulders at the park and laugh without a care. A mainstream fact surfaces: children often carry the weight of misinterpreted actions into adulthood, letting anger grow where understanding could have flourished. I see it now reflected in his eyes. He glances down at the photograph again, tracing the baby's face. Recognition sparks, perhaps a distant cousin, perhaps someone else important in our past. His jaw relaxes just slightly, the first crack in his armor. An obscure detail resurfaces from the letters my wife had written about sacrifices, but also about hope. That hope now sits between us, fragile and unspoken, waiting for him to grasp it. Finally, he exhales. Maybe I don't understand it all yet. I nod. You don't need to understand everything tonight, but you need to start seeing the truth, the effort, the love that built this family. He looks out the window, watching snowflakes drift silently past. For the first time in days, his expression softens, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Silence has its own way of speaking. The days following our cafe meeting are tense. My son doesn't call, doesn't text, but I can sense him observing, calculating. It's as if he's waiting for me to falter, to reveal weakness so he can claim victory. I notice small signs: his car parked across the street one evening, the lights flicking on and off in his apartment when he thinks I'm asleep. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but my instincts tell me something is brewing. I return to the hidden apartment, guided by my wife's notes and the key still warm in my coat pocket. The door opens with the same groan as before, but the room feels different tonight. Shadows seem longer, as if the walls themselves are aware of the tension building outside. Inside, I find a stack of unopened letters tucked beneath the frame of the photograph. Each bears my wife's familiar script, untouched, waiting. One mentions a transfer of property, another an investment in her name that I had never realized existed. A curious detail emerges: the bank account tied to the apartment has accrued interest far beyond what I would have expected. The sum could easily cover debts, rebuild trust, even change the dynamics between my son and me. I hear the faintest creak from above. My pulse quickens. Is it the wind, or is someone else here? My mind flashes to Mr. Han's warning: family can hurt worse than strangers. Could my son have followed me here? I set the letters on the table, aligning them neatly, and take a deep breath. The mainstream fact is clear: secrecy breeds conflict. Hidden wealth intentions and unspoken truths create pressure, waiting for a spark to ignite chaos. Obscurely, I remember a local saying: my wife loved. The weight of gold is light compared to the weight of a secret kept from a loved one. Tonight, I feel that truth pressing down on my shoulders. I leave the apartment quickly, heart pounding, the key clutched tightly. Outside, the street is empty, but I can feel the tension linger, a shadow that follows me home. My son's anger and pride have escalated, and I know the next confrontation will be unavoidable. I brace myself, understanding now that this battle is no longer just emotional. It is a collision of wills, secrets, and legacies. The storm is approaching, and I must be ready. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The following morning, I can't shake the feeling that the apartment holds more than just letters and deeds. There's a presence there, almost like a whisper from the past, urging me to uncover what I've overlooked. I return once more, the key heavy in my pocket, a weight of both hope and dread. The apartment is silent, the air stale with dust and memory. I move carefully, checking corners, scanning shelves, letting the light of dawn fall across the floorboards. That's when I notice a small wooden box tucked behind a stack of old journals on a shelf. Its surface is carved with intricate patterns faintly worn from decades of handling. Inside, I find an envelope sealed with red wax. I break the seal carefully, revealing a folded note in my wife's handwriting. My pulse quickens. Her writing is unmistakable, elegant, deliberate, and yet urgent. If you find this, it means the time has come. The truth must be seen. The apartment, the funds, and the letters all are keys to what our family must know. But beware, for he may not be ready to accept it. I sit back against the wall, the note trembling in my hand. Another clue, another thread connecting the past with the present. My wife had left guidance for a future I hadn't imagined, anticipating conflict, preparing me for a reckoning. The mainstream fact is undeniable. Sometimes understanding comes not from confrontation, but from discovery. By following these hidden threads, I gain insight into the intentions of the one I once called my child. Yet there's a peculiar, almost mystical element to this discovery. The way the sunlight falls across the envelope, illuminating her handwriting, reminds me of a folk tale she once told about messages hidden in light, revealed only when the heart is ready. I realize now that this apartment, these letters, the deeds, they are all pieces of a carefully constructed puzzle. My son believes he has all the pieces, but he is blind to the full picture. I leave the apartment, folding the note carefully and tucking it into my coat. Outside, the morning air bites sharply at my cheeks, but it feels alive, invigorating, charged with purpose. I have a direction now, a path guided by her clues leading toward the truth he refuses to see. Morally, I know I am walking a tightrope. Each step must be measured. Revealing too much too soon could provoke rage. Revealing too little could allow deception to fester. Balance is crucial, and I must proceed carefully. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. I returned home that evening, the apartment key tucked securely in my coat pocket. The letters and notes weigh heavily in my bag, reminders of the truths waiting to be revealed. But it's the photograph, the one from the wooden box, that has settled deep in my mind. Something about it feels pivotal, as though the moment I show it, everything will shift. I lay it carefully on the dining table, letting the soft lamplight illuminate the face of the child. The baby, so innocent, so unfamiliar, stares back at me. And then I notice a detail I hadn't seen before. A small charm around the child's neck, shaped like a tiny key, identical to the one my wife gave me years ago. My pulse quickens. The connection is undeniable. This charm is not decoration. It is a symbol my wife left to guide me to reveal the secret she safeguarded. Suddenly, the apartment, the hidden funds, the letters, they all converge toward this single pivotal clue. I pick up the photograph, holding it close. The mainstream fact is obvious. Physical evidence, photographs, documents, keys, carries weight that words alone cannot match. They can ignite understanding, force recognition, and in this case, bridge a chasm of betrayal. But there is something more subtle here. In my wife's culture, charms and tokens are believed to hold protective power to guide those who follow the path intended by the deceased. It is obscure, almost mystical, yet in this quiet evening, I feel it's true. The charm, the photograph, the apartment, they are her voice speaking across the years. I realize now why my son has been so desperate, so brash. He senses that he is missing something vital, something beyond mere inheritance. Pride and anger blind him to what has always been his birthright, the lessons, the history, and the love woven into our family's fabric. I place the photograph beside the letters and deeds. Morally, I feel a weight of responsibility. This revelation must be handled delicately. Too much too soon, and it could provoke more anger than understanding. Too little, and the lesson may never be learned. The room is silent, the lamplight casting long shadows. I breathe slowly, steadying myself for what comes next. The truth is within my grasp, yet I know the journey is far from over. Silence has its own way of speaking. The photograph rests on the table like a silent judge, but my mind cannot linger on it for long. There are practical matters now, realities I cannot ignore. I begin to investigate, quietly retracing steps, checking records, and making discreet calls. What I discover sends a chill through me. My son is drowning in debt. Not a small amount, but crippling, the kind that can destroy reputations, futures, and relationships. It explains the desperation I sensed in his recent actions, the furtive meetings, the harsh words. This is not just rebellion or pride. This is panic. The mainstream fact is simple: financial pressure transforms behavior, twisting even the kindest hearts into corners of desperation. I'd underestimated the burden he carried. Yet there's something obscure about his choices. I learn he has been gambling discreetly using friends' names to cover losses, taking loans from people I would never have trusted. His pride has prevented him from asking for help, even from those who care most. It's almost like he's trying to erase his own mistakes before anyone can see them, including me. I sit with this realization, letting it settle. Morally, it is a complicated revelation. I feel the sting of betrayal, his words at the dinner table, the accusations, the anger, but I also recognize the vulnerability behind them. My son is not evil. He is human, flawed, and cornered. I pick up the photograph again, the baby with the charm around its neck. The symbolism becomes clearer. My wife had intended this hidden legacy to safeguard the family from moments like this, to act as a lifeline, a secret support. And now her foresight has given me a chance to intervene wisely. The room is quiet, but my mind races. The next confrontation with my son must be strategic. I cannot let anger drive me. I must let truth, patience, and timing guide the revelation. The stakes are higher than before. Not just pride, not just family honor, but the potential to save him from his own mistakes. I place the photograph back beside the letters and deeds. Tomorrow, I know the next step will be crucial. But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. The next evening, I call my son to meet me at the small park near our old neighborhood. The sky is overcast, heavy with gray clouds that seem to press down on the earth as if the heavens themselves sense the tension about to unfold. He arrives reluctantly, his face tight with defensiveness, eyes darting around as though expecting the world to judge him. I hold the letters and photograph in my hands, letting their weight settle into my palms. "We need to talk," I say calmly, my voice steady. "Not about anger. Not about blame, about truth." His jaw tightens. "You mean more secrets, more lies?" His voice shakes, not with fear but frustration, a storm barely contained. I shake my head. "No lies, just truths you've been too angry or too proud to see. Your mother left guidance, assets, and history for you, not to trap you, but to protect you. And now your actions are putting yourself at risk." He glares at me, incredulous. "Protect me? You've spent years hiding things from me." I breathe slowly, steadying the rising tension. "I kept things safe until you were ready, until the moment where pride wouldn't blind you. And now I see desperation clouding your judgment. The debts, the secret loans, you're spiraling and you don't even realize it." He hesitates, the anger faltering slightly. The mainstream fact is evident confrontation must be tempered with patience. The blunt force of accusation only fuels resistance. I must approach with both firmness and compassion. Then I place the photograph before him. The baby with the charm around its neck staring up. "Do you see this?" I ask softly. "Your mother left you more than wealth. She left you wisdom. This apartment, these letters, even this photograph, it was meant to guide you." His eyes soften for a fleeting moment, recognition flickering. But pride fights back. "I don't need anyone's guidance," he snaps, though the tremor in his voice betrays his uncertainty. I lean forward slightly, voice gentle but firm. "Perhaps not. But even the strongest need direction when blind to danger. Your mother knew this, I know this, and now you have a choice, ignore it or see it." For a heartbeat, we sit in silence. The park around us is quiet, the wind stirring leaves and faint rustling whispers. He looks at me, then at the photograph, and finally exhales the first trace of humility softening his features. Morally, I reflect confrontation without patience may inflame, but confrontation with clarity and care can plant the seeds of understanding. Tonight, a crack appears in his armor, small, almost imperceptible, but real. Silence has its own way of speaking. The following morning, I head to Mr. Choi's office, the lawyer who managed my late wife's estate. The city streets are slick with frost, the air crisp as if signaling that something significant is about to unfold. The folder of documents and letters sits firmly in my bag, pressing against my side like a heartbeat I can't ignore. Mr. Choi greets me with a nod. "I was expecting you," he says, his tone even but tinged with curiosity. "I assume this is about your son." I nod, placing the folder on his desk. It's about the truth, about what my wife left behind and what he has yet to see. He opens the folder, carefully scanning the deeds, bank statements, and letters. "These are substantial," he murmurs. "It's clear your wife planned this meticulously. The apartment, the hidden accounts. This is not just financial, it's guidance. She wanted him to learn responsibility, patience, and respect." I watch him closely as he pulls out a sealed envelope stamped and addressed in my wife's elegant handwriting. This, he says, was meant to be opened only when the family was ready for the full truth. It includes instructions, conditions for inheritance, and the key to the hidden apartment. I take the envelope in my hands, feeling the embossed seal beneath my fingers. A strange mixture of dread and anticipation swells in my chest. I know that once this envelope is opened in front of my son, the course of our family will change irreversibly. Mr. Choi leans back. Your son doesn't know what's inside. He thinks he's entitled, but the reality is far more complex. He needs to understand the sacrifices, the history, and the reasoning behind these decisions. A mainstream fact surfaces: inheritance disputes often escalate not over money but over timing, understanding, and the perceived fairness of actions. I realize that if I reveal this incorrectly, the conflict will intensify rather than resolve. Yet there's an obscure lesson hidden here, almost poetic. In some traditions, envelopes sealed by the deceased carry not just legal weight but moral weight. The seal is both a gate and a test. Only those who approach with respect and patience may truly understand the contents. I leave the office with the envelope in my coat pocket, the letters and photograph pressed firmly against it. Outside, the city hums with life, oblivious to the storm building between my son and me. Morally, I know this: the next steps must be measured, deliberate, and timed. The truth can heal, but only if it is delivered wisely. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The weekend arrives and I arrange a meeting at the old family home, the place where he grew up. The walls still echoing laughter and the occasional cry of childhood. I place the envelope, the photograph, and the letters neatly on the dining table. The room is silent, anticipating, heavy with memories and unspoken tension. My son arrives storming in with a mix of defiance and curiosity. What now, he asks sharply, glancing at the items on the table. I gesture toward the envelope. This contains the truth your mother and I preserved. The apartment, the accounts, the history. Everything you assumed you understood but never did. He scoffs but picks up the photograph first. His eyes widen as he recognizes the charm, the baby, the unmistakable handwriting of my wife. A flicker of shock passes across his face, quickly replaced by defensiveness. I don't care about her games, he mutters, shoving the photo back toward me. I don't need this. None of it changes anything. I remain calm. It changes everything, not the past but the present, not your pride but your understanding. I open the envelope slowly, letting him watch every movement. Inside are deeds, accounts, and letters detailing sacrifices, provisions, and warnings. The hidden apartment, long unknown to him, is now revealed as part of my wife's estate, secured for him only if he approaches it responsibly. The weight of realization hits him like a thunderclap. His hands tremble slightly. His mouth opens and closes, searching for words that fail to come. The mainstream fact is stark, sudden exposure of truth, especially when long hidden, can provoke awe, fear, or guilt. Obscurely, I notice the floorboards creak beneath him, as if the house itself is reacting to the revelation. Shadows shift across the walls, giving a surreal sense that the past and present are colliding. His eyes finally meet mine, wide with disbelief. You've been hiding this all along. Yes, I say softly, to protect you, to teach you responsibility, to give you time to understand before the burden became yours alone. The room is silent. Neighbors, friends, and relatives who have gathered stand frozen, sensing the magnitude of the moment. My son sinks into a chair, pale, caught between awe, regret, and the understanding of the depth of betrayal he assumed existed. Morally, I reflect sometimes the harshest words and actions are not the end, but the precursor to revelation. Pride must be broken not to humiliate, but to illuminate. And that was only the beginning. The room feels heavy after the revelation, as if the walls themselves are absorbing the shock. My son sits frozen, staring at the photograph, the letters, and the deeds scattered across the table. For the first time, he looks small, not from shame, but from the sheer weight of what he has just seen. Relatives murmur quietly, exchanging glances. My daughter-in-law bites her lip, realizing the magnitude of the secret she underestimated. Even neighbors who had gathered for the dinner sense the tension, their faces pale with curiosity and anticipation. My son finally speaks, his voice a whisper. I had no idea. I thought. He trails off, unable to complete the sentence. His anger has melted into confusion, guilt, and a dawning comprehension. I sit across from him, my hands folded calmly. You assumed the worst because you didn't know. Now you know. And knowing gives you a choice to reconcile or to let pride dictate your next steps. He exhales slowly, eyes still fixed on the photograph. I've been blind, he admits. Anger, pride, debt. I thought I was in control. I wasn't even seeing the truth. The mainstream fact hits me. Acknowledgement of wrongdoing is the first step toward genuine change. Without it, pride festers. With it, even the deepest wounds can begin to heal. A faint, almost mystical detail stands out. The photograph's charm glints in the evening light, streaming through the window, a reminder of my wife's foresight, her careful preparation, her silent guidance even from beyond the grave. I place a hand gently on his shoulder. It's not too late, I say. We can begin again. But it starts with honesty, humility, and understanding. The room holds its collective breath as he nods slowly, the tension easing slightly, replaced by a fragile hope. Silence finally feels like an ally, not a threat. Morally, I realize the importance of patience and timing. Revelation alone cannot repair relationships, but it can open the path toward reconciliation and growth. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The revelation spreads through the room like a slow-moving tide. Whispers ripple from one relative to another, some faces alight with surprise, others shadowed by suspicion. My son remains seated, pale and wide-eyed, gripping the photograph as if it anchors him to reality. My daughter-in-law crosses her arms, a mixture of frustration and incredulity in her gaze. So all this time, she hisses softly, "He knew." And we were kept in the dark. I nod calmly. We preserve the truth until the right moment. Secrets like these are not meant to punish, but to teach, to guide. Timing matters. Neighbors and distant relatives murmur among themselves, debating loyalty, fairness, and the moral weight of what they've witnessed. Some question why the truth was hidden. Others marvel at the foresight and care that allowed my wife to safeguard the family's future. A strange fact strikes me. Family fractures are often exacerbated not by betrayal alone, but by the perception of unfair advantage or secrecy. Tonight, both exist, but the truth can heal if handled correctly. Obscurely, I notice my grandson peering from behind a chair. His young eyes reflect awe and confusion, a quiet moral lesson forming without anyone speaking. Even he senses the magnitude of what has been revealed. I take a slow breath. Morally, I realize that revelation can divide before it unites. Some family members may cling to anger, others to understanding. But these divisions, however painful, create the space for reflection, for reconsideration, and eventually reconciliation. My son rises slowly, his voice quieter, more reflective. I don't know what to say. I've been wrong. Not just about you, but about everything my mother trusted me to understand. The room is silent again, heavier this time, but with possibility woven through it. Eyes meet eyes, and for the first time I see that the walls that have held so many unspoken tensions are beginning to shift, letting the family breathe together, even if uneasily. Silence has its own way of speaking. The house finally feels still, the echoes of argument and revelation gradually fading into a fragile quiet. I sit in my study, the letters and photograph neatly stacked before me, a tangible record of the storm that has passed. My son's voice lingers in my mind, softened now, a tentative acknowledgement rather than a challenge. I lean back in my chair, letting the weight of the past week settle. The chest ache that once gripped me with panic now feels distant, replaced by a steadiness that comes from knowing I have faced both betrayal and truth. I realized the journey wasn't about proving dominance or correcting pride. It was about patience, foresight, and moral courage. The mainstream fact is simple, yet profound understanding and reconciliation are rarely immediate. They require time, reflection, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. My son's anger was real, but so too is the opportunity for repair. A faint, obscure memory surfaces. My wife once told me that the most enduring lessons are hidden within patience and love, not spoken loudly, but lived silently. In that quiet, I feel her presence, a steadying force reminding me that family is not only about blood, but about the care and vigilance one exercises over it. I rise slowly and move to the window, watching the first hints of morning light glint on the snow outside. There's a certain peace in the world that contrasts sharply with the emotional storms within, a reminder that life continues even when hearts are burdened. Morally, I reflect on my own journey. I have seen anger, betrayal, pride, and fear, but I have also witnessed recognition, humility, and the beginnings of understanding. This balance, this duality defines the work of a parent, a guardian, a human being striving to protect love in all its forms. I place my hand gently on the photograph, the charm glinting faintly. It symbolizes not only a secret revealed, but the enduring bond that persists despite the fractures, a bond that patience, truth, and courage have preserved. And that was only the beginning. The house is quiet now. The storm has passed, leaving a residue of calm and reflection. I walk slowly through the living room, touching the old photo frames, the letters, the deeds, the photograph, with the tiny charm that has guided me through this journey. Everything feels heavier, yet somehow lighter, weighted with truth, but lifted by understanding. Outside, the winter sunlight glints off the snow, soft and gentle, washing the street in pale gold. I open a window to breathe it in, the cold air, a reminder that life continues indifferent yet comforting. The silence is not empty but reflective, carrying with it the whispers of the past and the hope of tomorrow. My son sits nearby, still processing. Still quiet, yet no longer hostile. The tension has faded, replaced by a tentative acknowledgement of the truths revealed. His shoulders have relaxed slightly, and in his eyes I see the faintest glimmer of remorse, humility, and perhaps a willingness to rebuild. The mainstream fact is clear: reconciliation rarely comes quickly. It is a process, a series of small recognitions and gestures that slowly knit together what anger and pride have torn apart. Tonight, the first threads have begun to weave a new pattern. Obscurely, I recall a belief my wife cherished, that objects, letters, and tokens are vessels of memory guiding the living to see what they cannot yet understand. The photograph, the charm, the apartment, these were her way of bridging the divide, of teaching patience, and of ensuring that love and truth endure. I sit by the window, the letters stacked neatly beside me. I reflect on the journey: betrayal, confrontation, revelations, and finally understanding. I think about the lessons learned, not just for my son but for myself. Morally, the weight of truth is a responsibility, and the courage to reveal it wisely is the measure of strength. I rise and move toward the door, looking back one last time. The family, though shaken, is still intact. There is hope, fragile but real. And as I step outside into the crisp morning air, I carry with me the knowledge that even when betrayal strikes deepest, patience, foresight, and love can restore what was thought lost. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it touched you, please subscribe and continue with the next story in the playlist.